Well, this is a big week in the Senate for trade, and I know it's been, the issue's been portrayed by adversaries as a step that only benefits very large businesses. So Senator Warner and Senator Ernst and I are here with some small businesses from our states that point out that the export business is for everybody. I'm going to mention my constituent who will be up here shortly, Chase Robbins, who's president of Apex Motorsports in Shelbyville, Kentucky. He's got 3 employees. 3 employees. He's seen a 400% jump in sales between 2011 and 2012. And they export 10% of their products. Now, that's not the picture the critics of TPA and trade in general want to look at, but it certainly underscores how much of American business of all sizes benefits from American trade agreements. And we're going to press forward with TPA this week and get it across the finish line. With that, let me turn to Senator Warner and then Senator Ernst.
I want to thank Senator McConnell and for making sure we move forward this week on trade. I think we all have the sense that increased trade is good for American business, American workers, and the American economy. In Virginia alone, our trade accounts for about $19 billion in our economy. It supports 91,000 jobs, and echoing what Senator McConnell said, nearly 87% of Virginia companies that are engaged in international trade are small and medium-sized companies. So as you're going to hear from the gentleman behind us, this is a benefit to both small and large companies. 3 other quick points. One is, as we move past TPA, which I hope we will pass this week, and look hopefully further down the line to TPP, 40% of the world's economy is engaged in the countries involved in TPP, and in many ways we're going to have a choice whether American rules and regulations and standards are going to set the framework for trade with that 40% of the world, or whether one of our competitor nations like China is going to set the rules. The 2 other comments I'm going to make is that in the past, as a state that's seen both the upside and downside of trade, where we've had lost jobs in textiles and furniture in past trade agreements, sometimes we make a mistake between distinguishing between trade and those countries where we have trade agreements. Those countries we have trade agreements, I believe with the exception of one, we actually have net surpluses. So trade agreements are actually quite good. And I want to commend the Majority Leader for his action last week, where the Senate overwhelmingly, bipartisan 78-20, voted to make sure that on future trade agreements, we're going to have strong environmental, labor, safety standards to make sure that American workers are protected on this level playing field going forward. Final point is, we do know that in any trade agreement, there are challenges, and again, one of the things that is working through both the House and the Senate in this package is the notion that those workers that are harmed during trade will be protected by trade assistance. So this is a package. This is an area where we've got bipartisan support. There's a large number of Democrats who are supporting this effort. And again, I commend the idea that we can bring some of the faces of small business forward that are going to benefit by these agreements going forward. With that, I'll turn to one of my newest colleagues and friends, Senator Ernst from Iowa.
And also, thanks to the leader and Senator Warner for being here today. We do know that trade plays an important role in Iowa's economy. And just as Senator Warner pointed out, some of the aspects of business that would be very helped by trade in Virginia, Iowa is very, very different. And I would like to share some of the points on why the Trade Promotion Authority would be beneficial to our Iowa economy. We would stand to directly benefit by opening up the international trade that would really boost our agricultural exports and provide new market opportunities, reduce those trade barriers and for our manufacturers, create more jobs here in the United States. And just last night, I received a letter from more than 70 of our state of Iowa leaders, both in the private industry and also from our governor, lieutenant governor. So it was encouraging to have this letter, again, signed by over 70 folks from Iowa supporting TPA. So what they were stressing again is how international trade is so important to our businesses, our workers, our farmers, and according to the letter, and again, some really interesting statistics. In 2014, Iowa exported a record-setting $15.1 billion in manufactured goods and value-added agricultural products. Nearly 83% of these exports came from small or medium-sized businesses. And Iowa farmers exported over $3.5 billion in soybeans, nearly $2 billion in pork, $1.7 billion in corn, and just over $1 billion in feed grain. And in addition, I want you to consider this too, because this is pretty astounding for Iowa. According to the Business Roundtable, over 448,000 Iowa jobs are directly tied to trade. That is nearly 1 in 5 jobs in Iowa directly associated to trade. So we are proud supporters of this TPA. I've been encouraged by so many members in Iowa to be supportive of this measure. I am glad to see that we are moving this legislation. We have over 3,300 Iowa-based companies that have exported to nearly 190 companies, countries all around the world. So I appreciate your time today. Again, I want to thank the leader, thanks Senator Warner for joining us, and to our guests here also. We would love to give them plenty of time to give their stories and answer questions. But again, this is very important to Iowa and to many, many other states. So would love to see this move forward, hopefully this week. So thank you very much for your time.
Good morning. My name is Howard Ice. I'm chairman and CEO of Ice Industries, and I'm in Sylvania, Ohio. In 1999, when I was 32, I risked everything I had, went into debt, and started Ice Industries with our first acquisition in Toledo, Ohio. We started with 21 employees and about $2 million in sales. Today, Ice Industries has 5 locations in the U.S. and Mexico. We have nearly 500 U.S. employees, and I'm proud to say we just celebrated our 15-year anniversary. Our success and growth couldn't have been made possible without the opportunities that we have from trade. In the U.S., we export nearly 25% of our annual sales, either direct or indirect. And among our long list of customers, we have 6 Fortune 50 companies who export our products all over the world. But with a highly competitive global economy and barriers to entry like tariffs, being successful exporting from the United States is very challenging. It is even more challenging considering we only have 20 countries with free trade agreements that we can ship to duty-free. And unfortunately, in the past 5 years, the U.S. has continued to fall behind other countries. Mexico, for example, has over 41 free trade agreements in place and has been the recipient of over $21 billion of new capital investment from many different industries. Year-over-year sustained capital investment like that is what creates jobs, opens doors to new technology, and sales opportunities at home and abroad. That is why now, more than ever, we need to come together and make some changes. We need the Trans-Pacific Partnership to be put in place for further open markets and opportunities. And to get that done, we need to pass TPA. Smaller U.S. corporations like mine depend on trade to grow and to create jobs. It is time for Congress to break down the barriers and put our country in a trade leadership position. Thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader McConnell. Good morning. I am Doug Wolf, a pork producer from Lancaster, Wisconsin. I'm here on behalf of the National Pork Producers Council and America's 68,000 hog farmers to urge swift passage of TPA. U.S. agriculture has benefited greatly from free trade agreements, which are made possible by Trade Promotion Authority. TPA gives our negotiators the leverage they need to close trade deals and allows our trading partners to get their bottom line offers. Just how valuable are FTAs? Since 1989, the year the United States implemented the agreement with Canada, and started opening international markets for our products, agricultural exports have nearly quadrupled in value and were a record $150.5 billion in 2014, supporting more than 1 million jobs. Pork exports increased more than 1,500% in value over the past 25 years and were a record $6.67 billion in 2014. Without FTAs, it's difficult and costly to get our products into other countries. For example, Vietnam, which consumes a lot of pork, has a 25% duty on U.S. hams and pork shoulders. We're negotiating in the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement to eliminate taxes on our products, which would allow U.S. pork industries to export a lot more to Vietnam. To highlight the importance of FTAs, consider that the U.S. pork industry exports more to the 20 countries with which the United States has FTAs than all the other nations combined. For Wolf LNG Farms, exports have helped my third-generation family farm grow from marketing 1,000 hogs a year to 24,000. Last year, pork exports added nearly $63 to the price I received for each hog marketed. And that added value was enjoyed by companies throughout the supply chain and supports hundreds of thousands of U.S. jobs. But we need to grow our exports to sustain our economy, particularly since more than 95% of the world's population lives outside of the United States. We have an opportunity through the TPP, which is close to being finalized, but we need TPA authority to push across the finish line. Trade has helped my farm grow, and I am confident it will help my son and daughter-in-law continue to earn a living in the pork industry. Family farms like mine will benefit greatly from new trade agreements, which only are made possible through passages of TPA.
Good morning. My name is Chase Robbins, and I'm the owner of Apex Motorsports in Shelbyville, Kentucky. Apex Motorsports specializes in selling high-performance car parts through our website, apexspeed.com. I founded the business with my business partner in 2010 after I was medically discharged from the Army. Between the two of us, we put together $1,600 to start our company and have expanded now to a brick-and-mortar store, and today employ 3 people. Soon after starting Apex Motorsports, we started selling overseas with great success. As the Senator mentioned, we saw an almost 400% jump in sales between 2011 and 2012. Today, we export approximately 10% of our products abroad, and we've been able to leverage our international success to opening a showroom. As our business has grown internationally, we have been confronted with barriers that compromise global markets. It was not long after sending our first shipment overseas that we realized that trade rules were outdated for our business. Most of the agreements and rules were written before small businesses like ours were able to fully utilize the internet to exploit the global market. Trade agreements offer the best chance to lower barriers and increase market access for small companies like mine. We see a bright future for Apex and other companies like ours in the export market, but we need new trade deals to get there. Trade Promotion Authority is the first step towards modernizing trade agreements, and I encourage Congress to pass TPA as soon as possible. And I'd just like to thank Leader McConnell for his work on promoting small business issues like this one and internet sales tax and others. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to encourage you all to ask whatever questions you have of our guests here, who are the experts. Any questions of any of our guests?
Actually, I'd like to ask someone about Apex. What's his name?
Chase Robbins.
Chase, come up to the mic here.
A lot of automakers and auto parts makers are pushing for some kind of legislation in this bill to address currency, especially to get their parts into Japan. And I'm wondering if you are experiencing difficulty getting your auto parts into Japan, and do you believe that that the Senate should act on currency manipulation?
That specific issue doesn't impact us a lot. Japan's not a market that we're into. I'm here more on the why issue than the ins and outs of the how and everything. That would be more of a question for these guys.
Yeah, let me just add, you know, the currency issue is an issue that could well bring about a presidential veto. We'll be having amendments on that subject. Those will be very important amendments. in terms of determining the way forward on TPA. Yeah, I'm going to be back out here with a stakeout after lunch. I'd really like to see whether there are any questions of our guests who.
A lot biggest, big criticism from Democrats.
To which of these guys?
Any of them can answer this. One of the biggest criticisms from Democrats who oppose TPA is the secrecy involved in it. They say that they can go down and they can see this deal, the TPP deal, but that the American public cannot see the deal. Does that concern you at all? Is that a criticism that you have with this deal?
I wouldn't think so. From our interest and where we're at and what we do every day is try to create jobs and grow employment. I believe that any access to new markets is going to help us all do that. So that's our primary concern, really, is to create jobs. And if it gives us 12 more countries or 11 more countries to do business with without tariffs, that's more the better for all of us, I think.
And I might just add to that. I mean, TPA is just the first step in the process, and it's far from a done deal as far as TPP and everything is concerned. So, this is the first step, and there's many more to go, and it's not the end of the road. So, if it comes back that it's not favorable for U.S. businesses, small or large, there's recourse beyond that. So, at this point, it's not a concern for me.
Anyone else?
On the House side, there are some Republicans who really don't want to support the fast track deal, specifically because they don't like President Obama, and they're concerned about giving him too much power. Are you doing anything to reach out to lawmakers on the House side to try to persuade them the other way?
Well, I think it was March. I came here and spent some time going to different senators and visiting people and talking about that. So we're trying to encourage everybody to be supportive of it for the state, from our Ohio State standpoint, and to get the vote out to make it go through. We think it's good for our economy and good for what we're trying to do.
I would just add one thing. I would remind everybody, this is a 6-year trade promotion authority. This is not just for President Obama, it's for the next president as well. And so this is more about whether or not we're going to have the ability to enter into trade agreements over the next 6 years than it is about any one president. This gives the tool to this president and to the next one. Thank you, everyone.